Hello and welcome to the AEC Business Podcast. My name is Aarni Heiskanen and my guest is Jeevan Kalanithi, CEO at OpenSpace. And Jeevan was a guest on my podcast actually in January 2022. And my intention now is to get an update on OpenSpace and some of its recent announcements. Jeevan, it's great to have you on the podcast again.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm sure that a lot has happened since we talked previously. So, what has most shaped OpenSpace's business, and has there been anything that has surprised you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say the things that shaped our business is really just observing and listening to what our customers have been doing with the core technology that we launched. Um, and really, it's been amazing. There's so many different directions that they were taking this core idea of having like a full visual record of any space indoors and out. Um, and I think the exciting thing really was a challenge too, was to say, well, of all these million and one different things the market's doing, like what do we want to bet on and truly pursue as the vision for the company? Because there's multiple directions we could have gone. Um, I actually think it took us a little while to sort that out, even though we had, a core belief when we started the company. Um, and I think what surprised us is how that actually materialized. And in specifically, I would say the thing that I found really amazing is our customers using open space just to execute their work, from the field on up. And in particular, the the kind of workflows that we replaced without our intention, by the way, and the software that we replaced in a way. So, give you an example. I started seeing customers use OpenSpace in OAC meetings, um, and just they'd run their OAC meetings by just having OpenSpace open and just looking around, having the owner, architect, contractor look around visually what's there, looking at the notes that have been dropped in, and just go from top to bottom through the notes, and that was the meeting. And that's funny because that like replaces PowerPoint and Excel, the way people used to like run these meetings. And I was like, wow, that's pretty amazing. Like, what can we do to make that more routine for our customers? Like, why are they doing that? And what can we do to make that vision more reality?
Okay, yeah, that is certainly something very exciting for a software developer to see how actually your customers are also co-innovators.
Mhm. Totally. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You have an annual customer summit, Waypoint 2020, and Waypoint 2025 was recently, and you introduced the concept of visual intelligence platform. Um, what is it exactly, and what kind of technical or operational challenges are related? And how far are you in the process?
Yeah, actually, no, it almost relates to the last question. It's really the evolution of open space, kind of our chapter two, if you will. Um, I think what we had been doing prior to that was what you'd call reality capture, which is taking a real space, and then making it accessible to software, which is, I think prior to OpenSpace was done by laser scanner. So you take a laser scanner, get everything, and then boom, you had this data version of the real space. I think what we did is say, hey, you can do that a lot more easily with just cameras, 360 cameras, and that worked. We I think at Waypoint we even announced that we had like 52 billion square feet of imagery data has been captured by our customers. So that's really pretty amazing. And that's cool. That's a really valuable use case. You can look and see what's there in case you need it. You have to, it's opinions are being replaced by facts. So that's how people had been using open space. But as I mentioned with these OAC meetings, we started to see them use us to get the job done. And the visual intelligence platform is just that. It's a pretty simple idea. It's the idea of taking an image first. way of working. Like generally speaking, you're going to look and see what's going on, and that's going to be at the center of the workflows, as opposed to a document first way where your first thing you're doing is reading what someone wrote and writing down. And of course, words are important; they're both important, but I think for people that work in real physical reality, the reality data is what really captures what's going on. That's really going on. What's going on in the field is captured in images in reality. So the visual intelligence platform is all about that. It's like centered around capturing what's going on out there on the job site. So if it's going on out there in the field, it's in OpenSpace, whether that's 360 camera data, and now we've added drones, and then most importantly, smartphone data that's in everyone's pocket. A lot of pictures getting taken. And then we transform that into something that can actually be used. So obviously, if you have like a folder of 50,000 images, that's not useful. You need to locate them and make sense out of them. And that uses some pretty cool AI technologies. And then you plug it into workflows, whether that's doing something in OpenSpace with our field note system, or integrating it with your favorite PM software or whatever custom thing you have via API. So in summary, the visual intelligence platform is just a image first way of executing in the field, that integrates with your other systems. And then you asked what's been the most technically challenging part, or maybe the most challenging part so far and where we are. There is some incredibly advanced technology in under the hood, and that has to do with interpreting images and making sense out of them for builders. It's very complex. Um, our auto location technology, which we can maybe talk more about,
Mhm.
is very complex but incredibly valuable, and we're very proud of it. Um, but I think the most challenging part is really just getting the field execution workflows right. What do people want to get done in open space? When is it most important to ship that data into, say, Procore or Autodesk, get those integrations right? Um, I think the hardest part is really understanding the field's needs and finding the common denominator of user experience that applies to our customer base, which is big enough now that you can't do a one size fits all approach.
Yeah, understand. Yeah. So, I'm not sure, but did you start off with indoor reality capture first?
Yeah, so when we started off was really this experience using 360 cameras where
Mm.
you take a 360 camera, um, and then for those of you that don't know that are in the listening audience, 360 cameras, it's a consumer device. You can buy them anywhere, a few $100. Insta360 makes them. GoPro makes one now. Um, you take that camera. I think our core innovation in open space was that it's a totally passive experience. You just walk around, take the camera, you walk around the project. Um, and that's where we started. You walk around. As a byproduct of doing that walk, you have this full visual 360 record. Our customers would compare it to like a Google Street View. And you just do that over and over again. And then again, you have this ability to see what's on the project from anywhere at any time. And it's kind of like a time machine, so you can go look back. What was there a month ago, or what was behind that wall to avoid destructive verification, things like that.
Yeah, yeah. But now you have OpenSpace Air and also progress tracking.
Mhm.
Um, what new have they brought into your business?
Yeah, well, OpenSpace Air is part of that visual platform, visual intelligence platform story where what's happening in the projects, it should be in one place. And it's not for all projects. Many projects aren't of the size, or there's no ground up phase where you need that aerial data. So OpenSpace Air is a product in OpenSpace that allows our customers to import data from drones, and we process it and organize it and visualize it. So some projects really benefit from that, and so we're like, we should add it to our system. It's our customers had started to trust us with running this part of their business generally, and it just was a simpler thing to put it all in one place. And from a personal history perspective, the first company I started, we sold it to a company called 3D Robotics, which was eventually acquired by Esri, and we built a product called SiteScan, which is a drone, tool.
Mm.
Well, we have some 3D robotics folks in the company, so we know what we're doing when it comes to building these types of solutions, and we were able to do it using modern technology, and a great deal of knowledge about what the customer wanted. So we got it working quickly, and it's it's good. It's it's comprehensive and but not complicated. And it's quick, and that's something that we take pride in at OpenSpace, making sure our systems are like the fastest out there. So essentially, yeah, now if you're building a building that requires aerial data, you can have that in open space, and then when you transition into the indoor phase, you have it all in one place. So it's been going great, and I think even though we just launched it earlier this year in the spring, I believe we've processed like 1 million images, and that's growing quickly. So it's got great adoption. Um, and open space progress tracking, that's been really important. Progress tracking has been, I think, a holy grail for builders since reality capture 1.0 with laser scanners. Um, but it's an incredibly difficult problem to solve. And our progress tracking that we announced this year was really our generation two. Um, and what's awesome is it just works. It's not experimental technology. It works on all kinds of projects, not just giant ones, and it works at scale. And we incorporated a lot of lessons from our 1.0 version that was pretty advanced technologically, but just didn't have enough scope to meet the needs of builders. And our progress tracking solution we have today is in partnership with a company called Disperse. By the way, we just acquired them. So it's been an awesome partnership, and we said this should be all one solution, and we've really proven out that it really, really works.
Okay. So, how does this collaboration now enhance your product or offering?
Yeah, so I think the thing about progress tracking that's so exciting is it does really answer this holy grail idea that if you just have the data, what's actually going on in your projects in the field, then you can translate that into higher level insights that are really true, right? And I'm talking about things like your percent complete, productivity tracking, in your schedule. So, obviously today to update those things is a very manual process that requires a lot of opinion, and that takes a long time, and it's not very trustworthy. Not to say anybody's trying to be tricky, but there's a lot of trust required. And if you're going to issue payment to a subcontractor, you want to know that they really have installed X% of whatever their scope is. Um, and if you have reality data, image data, and it's comprehensive, then theoretically, you should be able to compute that automatically. Now, in fact, it's very challenging from both a technology and cultural point of view to do that. And I think that's what we've solved with our milestone-based progress tracking, so that it really is trusted and it works. Um, and then once you have that, the flow of a project is so much faster because you don't need your team to be doing these laborious things of computing these updates, which takes a lot of time. But more to the point, it's trusted, right? So if someone's asking for X payment, you can say yes, and you don't have to worry about it because you know that it's all been recorded in the sort of instant replay, or VAR for those that are, you know, uh, watch the Premier League. So, and that really helps. And you can imagine, maybe we'll get into this later, how far you can really take this concept and how transformative it can be for the industry. And with our progress tracking solution, it really does work on all kinds of projects. We figure that out, that it needs no project's unique as much as the industry wants that to be true. They're all unique flower. So we have a flexible system that works on all kinds of projects, and it plugs into the types of software people use for schedule, for example, like P6 or Asta. So you really get these automated updates that you can feel confident in.
Hmm. And also, hopefully, it reduces the need for litigation.
Oh, 100%. I mean, that's like, if you sort of think about the spectrum of issues that plague the industry, at the very end of it is litigation. That's when things have gone really haywire, but it's sadly very common. But then prior to litigation is maybe an insurance claim, which is bad. Prior to that is maybe a change order, then an RFI, then all the way to just people having some conflict or issue of the day, right? And all of those things suffer because you can't agree on what's really there. Um, and that's what the visual intelligence platform does, is it makes it incredibly easy to know what's really there, but in a way where you can get the information quickly. It's not a hassle. And where it's truly infused with, say, QA, QC, and safety are just intrinsically tied to reality. So everything gets simplified. After all, a picture is really worth 1,000 words, right? And so that's kind of the insight that we're building off of.
Yeah, as you said, it's facts, not opinions.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I just read somewhere that in the EU we have um, uh, disputes in 30% of construction projects. Some sort of dispute, maybe not litigation, but still.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense if you think about it. It's
Mm.
like, for so many reasons. I mean, every builder, and this, we're not breaking news with that fact, but I think you have an industry where the changes are not reversible. Like, you do something, it's hard to reverse it, unlike people that work behind desks where you can just say, up, Control Z. Can't do that. The amount of money at stake is, of course, big, so it's kind of quote unquote worth fighting for. Um, and we've kind of forced the industry to work in a way that is convenient for the office. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, prior to with really like AI and computer vision, the technologies at the core of OpenSpace, the computers could really only understand what's typed into them. They don't know what's going on in reality. And so we kind of make builders type stuff, or make reports and all this kind of stuff. Just completely not a good way to capture the actual work with reality. And so it's no wonder you're making people do all this work that in kind of nerdy engineering terms is lossy. Like, you're compressing the information in a way that is warped. And then with all those other facts, there's gonna be conflict. And I think that's the opportunity to, like, kind of resolve that at the root.
The thing that actually inspired me to contact you this time was AI auto location, because
Mm.
that sounded really something almost revolutionary, I would say, because indoor positioning has been a real challenge for many years.
Mhm.
So, can you talk about that?
Yeah, so let me explain what AI auto location is and what it's for, and what our vision for it is. So, taking a real step back, like, location is important, for lots of problems, but certainly for builders. I had a superintendent tell me, if you don't know where it happened, you might as well not know it at all. And it's true. You get a photo of some trade damage. You're like, where is it? That's like, I don't know. Then it's garbage. So location is like ultra critical for our industry. You know where something happened, you can deal with it. And of course, if you zoom out, GPS is like kind of the ultimate location technology. I would say maybe the most impactful information technology of the past 50 years, maybe that and the internet. Um, but GPS doesn't work indoors, as you imply, because it's satellite based, right? And so indoor location has been this problem that has been kind of unsolved, broadly speaking, and billions of dollars have been spent by companies and VCs on how to solve it. But they haven't really been able to, except via, like, pretty heavy solutions where you install hardware beacons and all that kind of stuff, which is not gonna happen on a job site.
Mm.
And so we just saw that one of the core problems is, again, knowing where something is. And in really our core 360 camera solution, it kind of does solve indoor location in that you walk around a 360 camera, and then boom, we have this output where each 360 image is pinned to the floor plan. Now that's great, but, if you take that further, you're like, man, what if every smartphone on that job also knew its location in real time? So that if you take a snag or a punch item and you take that photo or whatever, it just pins the location automatically. I mean, that is amazing. That would be amazing. And to be frank, Mike, our CTO and one of our co-founders, proposed this idea of how to solve this problem a while back, and I was like, "It's never gonna work." But he's like, "No, I think we can get it to work because we are taking advantage of our massive data set. That's part of the ingredient for how we got auto location to work. And so we at OpenSpace, we're in this very unique position to solve it. And that's what we've done. So if you are on a project that's using OpenSpace, you're doing a 360 walk, we're kind of creating a spatial model, if you will, of that site. And then we can kind of install a version of that model onto any smartphone that has our app, such that when you're walking around, and you are say doing a QA/QC walk, we can start suggesting locations. And that is a great first use case, really. So auto location broadly is about knowing where the device is, indoors in real time, generally speaking. And you could say our auto location 1.0 is what we have now, which is applied to, these sorts of walks when you're doing safety or punch or noting these issues. And what I love about it too is that it's a very graceful technology. What I mean by that is when it's confident, it'll suggest the locations because we have the data there. If it's not, it won't. And that's the way it works today, So we're not asking the users to do anything weird. And but it's pretty magical when it turns on, and it really saves so much time. It's one of those things where you might think of it as a small thing, like, yeah, how hard is it to like dig through the drawings on the phone and note your location? It is. People don't do it, it's a pain. And so it's part of our philosophy at open space is we're not afraid of any like incredibly gnarly technology problem, and we don't need it to be this cool whiz bang demo thing. It just needs to make life easier by removing a few clicks for the user out in the field.
Yeah, I would love to see that. Um, Another thing, voice-based field notes. I just wrote a newsletter on
Hmm.
voice and AI, and maybe you can explain how you do it.
Yeah, totally. So we announced at Waypoint, as you indicated, this new product called OpenSpace Field, which is all about field execution, making QA/QC, safety, these things easier, and incorporates auto location, which we just talked about, integrations, which are really key. Some things really should be two-way synced into your PM system for sure. And another thing is voice notes. Um, and I would say that LLM technology has really revolutionized uh, voice input, broadly speaking, so that we're able to build a system where you can just speak into the phone. And it doesn't just transcribe it, doesn't just transcribe your words, but it actually fills the form out correctly so that and you can speak kind of in an unstructured way and be like, okay, let's see here. I'm noticing that there's no fire extinguisher on this one spot. We really need to get that going in order to get substantial completion and assign this to, you know, Acme finishes, assign it to Bob and make sure it's done by Friday. And it'll fill out the date assigned to the next Friday. It'll find the right Bob to assign it to, and so on. It's pretty amazing. And this is really one of the benefits of some of the advances in LLM technology broadly. And at OpenSpace, we just applied some of those broad advancements into the specific use case of what builders need and the details matter. Getting it to work right is not simple, but we are also noticing what's possible with these larger models, and they're pretty cool. I mean, they reject noise. Um, pretty well. Uh, they do a lot of things. They even like do translations pretty effortlessly. So if you're speaking in Spanish, it'll just translate it into English. Pretty crazy.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Well, since you, um, I don't know how in how many countries you have customers. Know this?
Yeah. I should have this off the top of my head. Hundreds. I know there's not more than 100 some, but in many countries. So Yeah, OpenSpace is pretty global at this point.
Yeah. So, but the question naturally is that, especially here in the EU, we are really concerned about data privacy and all the regulatory things. How do you cope with those?
You just grind your way through it. There's no simple answer. You just have to understand the needs of that market and comply with them. I mean, I would love to say there's a silver bullet, but there's really not. I mean, we do have not just customers, say in the EU, but we have sales teams there too, right? So we have local boots on the ground, and we're like fully committed to those markets, which means that we have to uh, be in compliance with, say, GDPR. Um, and I think this is something that um, has gotten more true and was less true maybe 10 plus years ago, where you could kind of just ship a product and people just use it everywhere. And now there are more specific laws you need to be in compliance with, and customers may ask for data residency and things like that. Like, for example, our UK customers, not all of them, but some of them want the data in the UK resident. Germany, similar. Certainly in the Middle East, we have that, and in Asia too. So we we just committed to it. Like the most insane version of that, I would say, is we got our US government FedRAMP certification, which means that we can be used on US government projects. And in a way, that's like a regional quote unquote um, requirement, and that you have to do a lot of specific things in order to be in compliance with it. And there's no real shortcut to that. You just have to have a great team and great backend engineers and the willingness to just grind your way through it. Um, and so we've done that, which is took up a lot of time. I will say that, but now that it's behind us, it means that we can serve customers in these different regions, and they don't have to worry about working with like a experimental company or startup that maybe doesn't meet the obligations that the government asks them to meet.
Okay. Yeah. Well, now there are basically two strategies. You can focus very deeply on something, or as you have been doing, I guess you extending and expanding your scope. Um, but in that case, you also have new competition because
Yeah.
now you're reaching other areas as well. So, um, what is your moat?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say, okay, generally speaking, from a kind of entrepreneur perspective, um, don't rest on your laurels with whatever you think your moat is. Any moat can be defeated. You certainly saw that in the Middle Ages. They stopped making moats after a while. So it's all about just keep pushing at a good pace and making sure you're in sync with your customers. Um, so so what I'm about to say isn't like, oh, we have that and no one can touch us. But to actually answer your question, I would say the data is a moat. Um, like we really have the most scale when it comes to like reality data companies, I'd say, and that has and is allowing us to build certain technologies and products that you just cannot do without that scale. Without getting into details, like auto location is is possible with that. So it's incumbent upon us as a company to find ways of creating great user experiences that use some of those competitive advantages, and they become compounding advantages, right? Because you get more and more usage, then you can build more and more stuff. So that's one. Um, the second thing is, I think our core 360 experience is really just the fastest and easiest to use out there, and and that there's a lot of operational grind into getting something like that to work, and I consider that a kind of a technology advantage. That is to say, like getting that type of experience shipped generally isn't impossible, but getting it to work with like these 10-minute turnaround times is difficult. So typically, what we try to do is, if we have a new customer who's trying us out, we just say, try it out, just try it out. If you don't like it, no problem. And we tend to win almost every time in that situation, because with the real field experience, people are like, well, this is just easier and better. Um, so that the data is one sort of moat, if you will. The second is the kind of core experience technology advantage. And and then it's our obligation to find other ways of having the customers just trust us more. Um, I believe this our direct with visual intelligence platform helps us further that. And a lot of that is just making sure we operate nicely with other systems that they're using. That's important to customers too.
Mm. So how loyal are your customers?
They're pretty loyal, I have to say. We have enough customers where I can answer that question in a super quantitative way. Now, I guess maybe I won't say those numbers directly on this podcast, but I'll just say this. Um, when we're looking at this with our CFO and finance team recently, um, it is pretty incredible. Once we get a customer and they expand, they don't leave, you know? Um, and that's been cool. Now we don't take that for granted at all, because like, just like we buy software at OpenSpace, and things we like. Sometimes something better comes along, we will switch. It happens. It's not like we get married to companies. We understand that if our team, say, finds a better solution for problem X and we had been buying software Y, then we can switch. Um, but at OpenSpace, we found that once we get some of that traction, it's good, but we absolutely do not take it for granted at all. I think a lot of what we announced at Waypoint, um, hopefully communicated to our existing customers, and hopefully potentially new ones too, that we really are interested in helping solve their actual problems, not just neato stuff, um, and that the longer they stick with us, like the more benefit they get.
Um, well, I always ask something about the future, and how do you see the future of your company and maybe the industry?
Yeah, I mean, just to go crazy for a second with this question, I think that there is a kind of confluence of economic factors, almost cultural ones, and technology can support this, that could totally transform construction. I guess you could say like real estate broadly. And what I mean by that is, um, I'll I'll just take a few different tacks at this question. Um, so here's one thing one of our team members said, who's a product manager at OpenSpace and had come from industry. He was talking about OpenSpace Field, which is this product we launched, which is all about field execution, image first. And he said something that was like, what's so cool about this new way of working, and it is new with very advanced computer vision AI technology. What's so cool about it is it's like the old way of working, where you just look and see what's going on. You get the right people to like deal with it. You create a solution, you move on. And it's not like, okay, I'm going to fill out this report and then have 5,000 people like weigh in on it, zinging across the back and forth on the internet. And it takes like a month to even. And I think there was something really wise about that statement. But if you keep on pulling that thread, you can almost think about like the way building used to get organized, and even contractually. So I guess what I'm saying is, I think it's possible that if you take the fact that there's fewer and fewer workers, fewer labor, it's just not refilling those ranks is hard. You take this push, which I think comes just from all kinds of industries, for more transparency and sharing, just broadly speaking. Um, And then you take the fact that now we have some technologies that actually enable that in our industry. Maybe we'll start to see um, certain types of contracts get signed that are more about like transparency and profit sharing, like IPD might actually become less of a curiosity and more common. It's not crazy. It could happen. You might have builders that are more confident in doing that. You might have more and more builders, more GCs that are self-performing because they feel they can own the risk. Like, why not? If you can really track and see what's going on and your customers are asking for it, why not keep that extra margin? You might as well, right? Um, like maybe there'll even be master builders that are like building in this new way where they feel confident taking on the risk because the technology allows them to manage the business in a way that works for them, and it's less scary to you didn't atomize it across like 50 million different parties. Like as a real concrete example of this, you know, there's this company Shepherd Insurance that we partner with, and they're all about literally giving discounts to their customers for using technologies like OpenSpace, because they found that the claims uh, frequency is way, way lower with builders that use OpenSpace, like crazy lower, you know, and they might as well underwrite that risk and give you discounts. So oftentimes it is literally cheaper to build a project with OpenSpace because the insurance discounts outweigh even the cost of our own software. And then keep the profit or make a cheaper bid, whatever you want. But you can kind of see how this technology is actually, reducing the cost or risk, if you want to put it that way, of building. So yeah, so maybe in 5 or 10 years, you'll just have just more integration, which would be great, I think, because then there would be less fear about taking on a project and building it. Because Lord knows, we have a lot of stuff that we either need to build or rebuild, and the cost and fear around it is too high, you know?
Mm.
And so if we can, you know, like get back to a place where people are willing to like take on that risk, not just because they're being optimistic, because they truly are confident it's something that can generate profits for them. Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah. I like your vision. Yeah, I certainly would like to see that. And it's not impossible, I think. Mm. So,
I think there are builders that are doing it. You see it in Europe, you see it in the
Mhm.
US, some innovative builders that are kind of heading in this direction.
Yeah. Um, yeah, this was really insightful and interesting, and it was fantastic to hear what you're doing and how you're progressing. And I'm sure that our listeners or our audience can find more information at openspace.ai, I guess.
Yep, OpenSpace.ai is the place to go.
Yeah.
And want to learn more, just drop us a line.
Yeah. All right. Jeevan, thanks again and all the best with your business.
Thank you very much. Always a pleasure talking to you.
Thanks for listening. Subscribe to this podcast and visit aec-business.com, the award-winning blog, for more news and stories.